Okay, we're looking at our 47th memory verse. It's hard to believe we're in our last week for this year, 2022. We're looking at a verse in 1 John chapter 3 and verse 22, which reads this way: "And whatsoever we ask, we receive of him, because we keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight." This is an interesting verse, and one of the major things about it is we need to put it back into its context to be able to understand what it's telling us. And so we're going to diagram. So we're diagramming 1 John 3:22. And in doing that, we're going to look at some of the other verses. Okay, so we look at our verse, 1 John 3:22. We receive of him whatsoever we ask, because we keep his commandments and do the things that are pleasing in his sight. So let's back up and look at verse 18, because this is really one of the major themes about keeping his commandments and doing the things that are pleasing. It says, let us love let us love not in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And so the emphasis is what we do, right? Not what we say. And when we do that, then we have confidence towards God, because we're living the way that God wants us to live. We're actively showing our love both in deed and in truth, and we have that confidence. Then it says, and we receive of him. So this is of God. We receive of God whatsoever we ask. Now, of course, we need to put that into its context, right? So we see we have a dependence upon loving correctly, which gives us a confidence whatsoever we ask. Why can we be sure? Why do we have confidence that we'll receive of God what we ask? For two reasons, right? One, because we keep his command, and secondly, because we do the things that are pleasing in his sight. And so we want to emphasize this pleasing in his sight, which means we desire to please God. When we desire to please God, the things we ask for will be the things that God wants in our life and in our relationships. And it will never be asked out of selfishness, right? Because it's pleasing to God. So whatever we ask, because we're pleasing, the way we are living is pleasing in God's sight, then we will be asking for those things that God would want. Then we back up to, we keep his commandments. And that takes us to verse 23. And this is his commandment. One, that we believe on the name of his Son, or that we believe on Jesus Christ, right? The Son and Christ are equal. Same individual being spoken of, the name of his Son and Jesus Christ. So when we keep his commands, first it shows that we're believing, but notice the end here. We love one another. So when we ask, right, we need to keep his commands, and one of his commands is that we love one another. maybe sometimes one of the hardest things to do as believers is not to be selfish and to be concerned about others. And so the question here is, whatever we ask, we will receive because we keep his commands, which is true belief and that we love one another. And everything that we do is pleasing in his sight. So that limits whatever we ask, right? It's what God wants in our life, in our relationship. It's never selfish. And it reminds us that as God's children, we need to love one another. There is no excuse. We can't give a long list of things that people have done that are wrong to us, how we've been offended. The command is that we love one another. And so as we go into this new year, let's make this our goal, to love one another, to show our love to each other in the way that would be pleasing to God.